Remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
Hey, what's going on, all my fellow Godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? As always, this is your host, Vance, from the Warframe God Build series, and since the Rising Tide update launched, oh boy, I have been getting a lot of requests for Ember. Ember, that's all I've been hearing from my community. When are you going to do another Ember ReForged? Well, the answer was simple at the time. I prioritized Warframe Empyrean over anything because, come on, who doesn't want to operate their own Starship Enterprise, piloting that son of a bitch with your own crew of your clanmates or alliance members, friends, whatever. That took priority for me, and once I finished the completion of that ship, it was time to build test for Ember. And I made some shocking discoveries. Not only was Ember one of my least favorite frames to play, she quickly rose from that to one of my loadouts. She is in a really incredible place now, and her build is going to reflect all the changes that have been made to make her the most phenomenal fire frame I've seen in this game. So for the build, I'm going to be focusing mainly on power strength. With a 214% power strength, not included with the growing power because that doesn't show in the stats. Just keep in mind that with growing power, once you proc status, which we're going to do a lot in this whole loadout, you'll have an extra 25% added on to your power damage. So you have your growing power, your power drift, your transient fortitude, and then your umbral intensify, all added into the power strength. And then I also have exothermic, which is Ember's augment. What this does is while you're casting your Inferno, enemies have a chance to drop, they have a 15% chance to drop energy orbs. And if they do drop energy orbs, then you're also going to benefit from Arcane Energize, which means you're basically refueling yourself as far as energy is concerned. And that's going to be really, really important because we're not using Zenuric, we're using a different focus school, and you'll see why here in a minute. Now, stretch is obviously so the power range can hit the most amount of range possible, vitality to help with tankiness, also with arcane grace to help with tankiness, prime flow to increase your power cap, and streamline to increase the efficiency of that. The abilities have been changed a little bit now. The first ability is still Fireball. It's not a whole lot different. You can just cast this and it'll release a fiery projectile that ignites and puts enemies on fire. It's going to be complementative to some of the abilities, but I don't ever rely on it for anything. So the second ability is your Immolation. Now, this is really, really cool because how it works is it protects Ember with flame armor that burns stronger over time, consuming energy once its meter is full. Cast again to extinguish the flame. So basically, you're gonna have mass protection once that energy is full, and you can actually boost that protection by hitting your ult. But I also like to cast my third ability, which is Fire Blast, to decrease that meter. Fire Blast is really, really nice because it slams the ground to create a wave of incinerating plasma that knocks back enemies and strips their armor. Boy, does this work really, really well, especially in conjunction with a good melee hit this thing, do a spin attack with a long range melee, and you're gonna wipe the floor with enemies. Any enemies that have armor, well, they're gonna have their armor rapidly decayed. And the greatest thing about it is that it drains that immolation meter, which if it's full, you need to have it drained so that it doesn't consume so much energy. So it's always a balancing act between Fire Blast and immolation. Now the ult, the Inferno, command a flaming comet to crash down in front of Ember, engulfing enemies with fire that can spread through their ranks. You ignite enemies here, and you do a lot of damage. With the power strength that we have, you do a lot of damage, plus you can spam cast it, so, I mean, if it doesn't kill an enemy, I'll cast it like 4 times, my immolation automatically goes up, and then I'll finish off with a Fire Blast, and then start meleeing anything that survived, and usually nothing survives. This is incredible. I've seen it just decimate complete maps. Ember doesn't function the way that she used to be, where she's just like a running damage. She's not like Equinox anymore. She doesn't deal a radial damage as she's running. She deals damage forward facing in a cone, and it's like an ult. It's actually like Saren's first ult. So it's funny how Ember and Saren have switched places in terms of the damage that they deal, but it makes a lot more sense, and Ember was probably more deserving of her rework than anyone else in this entire game because she really needed it. Okay, so before I get into the weapons of this loadout, I want to talk briefly about the focus tree that I'm using and why I'm using it. With the new narrow lens, there's 2 important assets here. I also use this lens for Eidolon hunting, so you're going to be seeing a little bit of abilities there. But I primarily use it for Void Spines, which has 100% damage taken is returned back to the attacker. And on top of that, you have your Stone Skin, which increases armor for Warframe and Operator by 60. This is going to be really helpful. You're going to need this because Ember is sadly still a little bit squishy with her abilities. I mean, she's in a lot better place than she was to begin with, but I feel like anyone who's using Ember utterly needs Umeru because of the damage reflection and also the armor. It's really going to help. I can't stress enough how much you're going to need this for this build. It's going to complement you in every way. You won't regret it. Okay, now let's get into the actual grind of this build. The Supra Vandal. I think I've featured it before. There's not a whole lot changed. It's got a 97% status chance with Thermite rounds, Rhyme rounds, Stormbringer, Infected Clip, Entropy Burst, Heavy Caliber, Serration, and Split Chamber. Entropy Burst is going to give you the 20 base status chance plus Entropy, and what Entropy does is return energy to you. So, in the early phases of the game, when you're first starting the mission, you have no way of gaining energy because you have growing power and no Zenuric. Just start laying into enemies with the Entropy, and then, get enough energy to cast your ult and get some energy flowing. Super is always a good go-to as far as energy return, plus it does status, which is something we're heavily dependent upon to proc growing power anyway. So this is a really great method to start any mission, and when it gets really tight, especially when Eximuses are crowding you like all the leeches, this is going to bail you out. This is going to return the energy back to you plus kill them because it's a really god tier weapon. For secondaries, I'm not using anything special here. It's Automos. I've used it before in previous god builds. I do the deep freeze, prime heated charge, hornet strike, barrel diffusion, pathogen rounds, convulsion, ruinous extension, and lethal torrent. It does in blast and corrosive. It has 914 blast, 463 corrosive, plus the status is 21%, but even though it's a low 20%, it procs all the time. So don't even pay attention to the stats with that. It's a little bit deceptive. This is a great gun. It does DPS, so it's not the best go-to, but for status, and if you do get downed, it really helps keep enemies at bay while like your teammates are trying to help you up. But since we got access to our operator, nobody should have a problem getting you up. Now for the melees, I am using the beautiful Tatsu infested skin that you got from Nightwave. And this katana is a bad mumbo jumbo when you start adding the variables into this build. You know how we roll. Every time we do a god build, we do weapons, warframes, companions, gear. We do everything that synergizes, and Tatsu is the perfect candidate for Ember because you have condition overload. On top of that, you also have Virulent Scourge, Voltic Strike, Healing Return, which helps with your tankiness. Because this weapon is doing status, you're going to be healing yourself on top of the Arcane Grace and the Unero, so you're going to always need to be melee. And then you have your Blood Rush, your Organ Shatter, Prime Fury, Prime Pressure Point. I have Wise Razor for the stance mod. I don't think there's anything that you can choose actually besides that. Nope, it's Wise Razor for the moment. So just note that if this video becomes old and it doesn't age very well, they might add new stances to the game, and Wise Razor might be obsolete. Play with it at your leisure when whatever that stance mod is that comes out. I love doing spin attacks in a room full of enemies that I've just fire blasted because, well, their armor is going to be knocked off, plus they're going to be caught on fire, and with my Sentinel, they're probably going to be procced with status because, as you've seen me use in the past, I like to rely on Artax. The Artax laser, even though it says it has a 10% status chance, it actually procs 100% of the time. So on top of having your Serration, Split Chamber, Malignant Force run rounds, Heavy Calibers, Combustion Beam, High Voltage, and Thermite rounds, you're going to be applying Radiation and Viral to any victim that it shoots. Like, immediately it's going to do that, and I wish that it had some type of priority integrated into it to where it would purposely target like heavies or bombards, nullifiers, ancients, stuff like that. I wish it would do something like that, but I can't complain because anytime it is shooting something, it's going to be helping me with the condition overload. It's going to help me apply statuses, and on top of that, Death Cube is really just amazing because it will do an energy generator. Death Cube drops an energy orb after assisting in 10 kills. So, on top of your augment giving you energy orbs and your weapon giving you energy, this is also giving you energy. So, it's a very well-rounded build. It covers every component necessary to making Ember a god tier frame, which is why we've got a reforge for this now. So, I like Ember a lot now. I really do. I feel like she's in a really good place, and I think I'm going to close out this video by showing you all the nude Ember. Please don't demonetize me, YouTube, but here we go. Ember nude mod. It's not even a mod, it's really just a regalia and like a skin tone. So, you can see the little nipples there. You see what I did there? It's not the most brilliant thing in the world, but it is something to brag about when you go into missions and you say, hey, look, I'm a nude Ember. And what better time to play as a nude Ember with the Ember rework? So if you learned something from this video and you liked it, smash that like button as I always encourage you to do, share, comment, subscribe, and until next time, this has been Vance, signing out. Peace.